the approach that I take and what I think is really healing is acceptance of all of our parts. So it's not shunning that part away and never letting that part be there ever again. It's saying, hey, that part of me that's always on the go. Thank you. Thank you for helping me. And giving that acknowledgement and then having the courage, because it really does take courage to try. And I always think of the analogy of flexing a muscle. It's like we're lifting a dumbbell at the gym. We don't start on 100-pound weight. We start with, 2 pounds, 5 pounds, whatever it might be to help flex that muscle. And so, what are different ways that we can try to exercise that? Maybe we're, and maybe we'll be invited to an event and we don't really want to go, but we feel like we should go. Maybe that's a great time to exercise. No, I'm not gonna be able to make it. Thank you though. And just seeing how that feels in the body. And I think oftentimes we can feel a guilt or a pressure to let somebody down. Um, but really, if we're doing something out of the feeling or the fear of letting somebody else down, what we're really doing is letting ourselves down.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Truth to Heals podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and our guest for today is a very interesting person. I was looking at her website, and it talks all about being a somatic guide, energy interpreter, but also a thing that really caught my attention on her webpage was where Soma, soul, and strategy meet. So I'm excited, and today I'm introducing to the audience our guest for today, Stephanie Riel. Stephanie, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan Anthony. I really appreciate it.
Wow, well, thank you so much for being here. And to get started, I already kind of touched a bit on what it is that you do, but can you kind of walk us through what is it that you do?
Yeah, I I'm really passionate about helping people lead their lives and maybe their businesses if they have a business, but even if they're in a career, leading their lives in a way that feels really good in their body, that allows them to trust themselves. And so in my wording, I would call that like an intuition coach, an intuition mentor, or somatic coach. And somatic is a word that Soma means body. And I've found this work from living a life that was very out of alignment, very disconnected from my authentic self. And so my passion now is really helping people come back to their truth, come back to their authenticity, and operate from a really heart-centered place so that they can build lives and businesses that feel as good as they look.
So, what does it look like when someone has a business and while they're doing all the work, they're doing all the motions, but they're not connected with their authentic self? What does that look like?
Yeah, I'll speak a lot from my own experience because that's really what led me on this journey. I find often in society, we live in a world that really celebrates the external achievements, maybe the awards we receive, or dollar amounts in a bank account, or a number of clients, and or maybe that relationship that we're in, some kind of a certification or letters behind our name, and those are all things outside of us. And when we give that credibility is what's coming through to share. When we give that kind of that power to something outside of ourselves, we disconnect from the power that's already within us. And so what that could look like for entrepreneurs is maybe you're having a lot of success in business, like I was in my marketing agency, and achieving all the goals, doing all the things right, all the things that we think we should be doing, right? That society rewards and celebrates, or that gets a lot of traction on social media. But maybe it doesn't feel right inside. Maybe there's always this like nudge of, man, is this it? Or we're always trying to achieve and strive for something more instead of being able to be in the present moment and really be with ourselves and be with those feelings that come up. And so A lot of times entrepreneurs come to me and maybe they're having a lot of success, but something's just feeling off in their journey. Maybe their health isn't feeling that great. Maybe they just feel like something's missing. That was very much my experience. I was experiencing all the success in what looked amazing from the outside, but something kept on feeling off within. And so I really help entrepreneurs and everyday people, maybe that aren't connected to businesses, but really connect back into what's true for them and to really be in the body so that they can live more fulfilling lives that feel as good as that they look on the outside.
And what was it that helped you personally to listen to your body and to your true inner self?
Yeah. Oh, it has been a journey. I spent decades really not listening or avoiding truths that I knew. You ever get that pit in your stomach, maybe about a decision you make or um it's just this feeling, it's like, oh no, I shouldn't be doing this, or like this doesn't feel right. But then you do it anyway.
Hmm.
I was kind of living my whole life that way for decades and built a business that had achieved a lot of success, but kind of always felt like, uh-oh, what am I doing? Or, oh no, I shouldn't take this client on, even if the client was checking all the boxes of the things that my team and I were great to work with. And we would get great results. We had a lot of success. So it was almost reinforcing those choices, but it never really felt that pit in my stomach was really active. And so I think when I work with clients now, I want to help the person I was before who maybe is experiencing a lot of success, but something isn't feeling right in their body with it. And or maybe they're really burnt out. That's I think that's a word that we hear a lot now. I personally believe that burnout is really connected to maybe our purpose or our dharma, our soul's path. I'm a very spiritual person, so that's language that feels really aligned for me. But I think when we're chasing something outside of our true path, we can get a lot of those pit in the stomach moments. And I keep on directing towards the area right below my rib cage. You can't see it on the screen, but I keep on doing that. That's in the chakra system, our solar plexus, our area of personal power, and that's where I feel it. If I make a decision that's really a no and not a yes, I feel it there. And so, I to answer your question, I think oftentimes in our lives, if we're making decisions and they feel like a no, but we do it anyway, that's what I call not operating out of our authenticity or maybe giving away our power. And that's what I really want to help people get back to doing in their lives and in their businesses.
Some people might live their whole life, however young they may be or old, giving up their power to people please or to just kind of get by. But what are some paths one can take to either avoid or just to transform and just start maybe instead of people pleasing, to start listening to the body and giving oneself the power again?
Yeah. You know, that avoid word really sticks out to me because we live in a world that is full of many opportunities to avoid what we're really feeling. And I think I was in many ways using my business as successful it was. And I'm so grateful for the clients I impacted and their businesses and my team and the impact I was able to make with them. And I also recognize that I was avoiding a lot of things that were happening in my life. I was using work as a really great outlet to
Mhm.
not feel my feelings. And that's a really common thing. I'm sure, Ryan, I'm sure you know this as well for, sometimes when we experience traumas in our life, whether they're big T or little T traumas, um, our system wants to cope. Our system wants to keep us safe, and so we can get into a state of disconnection. And that might be working. For me, working was definitely one of those things. Watching sports, no offense to the sports fans out there, but if we're getting so wrapped up in it that it is hijacking our system and overwhelming our system, it could be an avoidance mechanism. Food. Um, music, I mean, travel, love, um, alcohol, any of those typical substances, they can all help us avoid things. And what an amazing time to be alive. We live on the planet right now in a time where there are distractions aplenty. Even books, even seeking knowledge could be, something that could is like seeking knowledge is such a good and powerful thing. It could also be a form of avoidance. And so I think we live in a time that we have more distractions than ever before. And there are so many opportunities to be in that avoidance. And um, I was sprinkling on my journey, I was sprinkling in all of them, a little bit of everything. But I think that's not uncommon. That doesn't make me special. It's very much a sign of the times that we're in. And I find when we are avoiding maybe feelings or um, things that we're moving through in our life that, no, by no fault of our own, maybe we just didn't have the capacity or the tools to support ourselves through whatever's coming up, we might fall into avoidance patterns. And so it's building awareness around that first and foremost.
And what was it that brought you into this new
Mm.
mindset? Was there maybe a book that you read, a podcast that you listened to, or an influential person?
There were a few things. So to go back to even one of your previous questions, my body had been speaking to me that something was off for years. And I think often our body and the practice of somatics that I'll speak about a lot in our conversation today, really is letting the body speak first. And I can explain that more, but why I'm bringing that up in context is our body is always speaking to us, whether it's, oh, let's make a left turn here instead of the right turn we usually make, or, um, oh, I think I want to eat some applesauce today. I don't know. That's what sounds good, right? We don't really think about that as much in the moment, but maybe when we come to a decision about our career or our love lives or things like that, we might be quick to say, "Oh, well that doesn't make sense." And we logic our way out of it. And when we're stuck in our brain, and I'll gesture to my head here. If you're just listening on audio, I'm tapping the top of my head because that's when we get into our thinking mind instead of leading from our heart or being in our body, being in our experience of what feels right. And so I give that context because there was a lot of those moments that didn't feel right, that felt like, oh, actually, I don't think I want to be doing this. Or actually, this isn't a full yes for me. I'm kind of talking myself into it. And I had a lot of those lived experiences for decades. Um, and it showed up in all facets of my life, but definitely in my business. But it got to a point where I couldn't ignore what my body was saying anymore. I was working so many hours in my marketing agency, like no exaggeration, 16 to 18-hour days at a computer. And I injured my ulnar nerve, which is the nerve in your elbow. So it became very painful for me to work. I couldn't work. I couldn't be at a keyboard for long periods of time, more than 20 minutes. That was long to my body because my body was physically rejecting me doing the work I was doing. Um, and I had a lot of other symptoms in my physical body that were coming up, um, signaling to me that something was off. And it really took, so I I had breast implants for a period of about 5.5 years and really wasn't feeling well while I had them. And I made the choice to get them removed. And it was actually through that process, after losing use of my left hand and left arm, recovering from my ulnar injury, um, I chose to have surgery. And when I had that surgery, I had to prepare to take some time off to rest and allow my body to recover. And it was when I gave myself that space. I had already been doing I had found somatic work and some tools and some mentors and some books kind of around the same time. I read a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And that book really changed my whole world. And I was working with a spiritual mentor or two spiritual mentors at the time, for different things. And I was practicing meditation and finding moments for stillness. And then I had to take a hard pause from my business for the first time ever. I started my first business at the age of 22 while I was still in college. Um, and that was then fast forward, so that was 2010. In 2022, so 12 years after that, I had never taken a vacation. Every time on a vacation I would have my laptop with me. I was on the beach. I can vividly remember being on the beach with loved ones, having my laptop with me because I was still working while I was there. Um, and when I explanted my breast implants, that was the first time I took an actual vacation. And it was that space and some of the other practices I had started to build up some tools in my body and my experience of breath work, meditation, going to sound healings, that I really started to get some space from that part of me that just wanted to achieve and do more, or maybe that people pleasing tendency. And I was really able to be like, oh my gosh, all of these things that I've cultivated in my life are not it. And that's really what started to change everything for me.
And when you put yourself on that vacation for the very first time, what was your body saying?
Oh, my body was saying, "Oh my gosh, thank you. I've only been wanting this for years." It felt so good to rest. And that was actually one of the first times in my life that I didn't feel guilt for resting. I had really embraced that it was okay to rest. And that wasn't just from that experience. I had been in, I'm a huge fan of internal family systems therapy and had been working with a therapist for almost 2 years at that point, to really help work with my parts that were overachieving and, many of my other parts that came up, but it was a layering of a lot of those different tools that gave me the space to give myself permission. And then I was able to really hear my body. My body was like, yeah, I need rest. I've been wanting to rest for a really long time. And it was, in some ways, it was very freeing. In other ways, it was painful to see that I was ignoring my body and my true needs for a long time.
So now at this point where you start listening to your body, would you say, in your point of view, does taking care of the body also impact a person's mental health?
My lived experience and my belief is yes, because we are one entity. I believe that we are energy, we are biomechanics, we are electricity. We are all these different facets and components and the fascia and there's all these different layers of our human and then our spiritual or ethereal self, but they work in tandem. The visual that I'm getting right now is like they're almost meshed together. It's all this one net, this one collective unit, and there's different layers. And so my experience is yes, for the body, when we can be in the body, and there's so many ways to do that, to get out of our heads and to get into our heart space. There's a lot of different ways to say it. Um, and when we can do that, I really do believe it is so beneficial. It was really beneficial for me and my mental health.
So how helpful is rest? Not only rest, but of course, rest and listening to the body and taking the appropriate steps to fix it. How much of an impact does that have on energy? Because you also interpret energy.
Mm-hmm. I believe that rest and honoring the body, honoring ourselves, setting boundaries when we need to, is a crucial part of our energy. I believe that we're energetic beings. We all have a specific energetic signature or frequency that we operate from, and that can shift because we are ever evolving, just like the cells in our system. But my belief is that that all is impacted by frequency and energy, and the choices that we make play into that. They shift where our frequency is, our energy is. Um, I study and I'm very curious about epigenetics and somatics, yes, and then cymatics, which is the study of sound and frequency as well. And I believe just like our bodies and our mental health are connected, I believe that those are all very connected too. Um, because I don't think we can have one without the other. I believe they mirror each other. That's just my personal belief.
how did you break free from that? And not only break free from, that way of extreme living, but how did leaving that style of lifestyle open the door to the practices that you're doing now and helping people?
Yeah. Um, a friend and mentor of mine talks about transformation um, and I've been very curious about like what makes a transformation happen? Like what actually makes somebody want to change their reality or shift or change? And so often it's almost that breaking point moment of knowing we can't continue the way we were continuing. And that experience I was sharing with my health and how I was feeling really was a big eye opener for me. Um, but I didn't let go easily. I was really stuck on that identity of the business I built. I mean, quite literally, my business was named after me. It had my last name in the brand name. I have the trademark and everything. I checked the box, you know. But it was it was two parts. It was definitely the rest. And I think the bigger layer underneath, and the thing that I have found so often in my journey is those beliefs that we have about ourselves or the traumas or the experiences we have um, in our journey really impact how we show up in the world. And so I've done a lot of reflection and work on the journey and on the why to really have an understanding and to really heal and liberate some of that stuck energy and that experience for myself. And I see now, I recognize that so much of that hard work and so much it was showing up in all the areas of my life, um, really wanted to prove that I was worth it
Mm.
and that I was worthy of the success and the accolades. And my way of doing that was by making it really hard on myself. I have a part that really didn't think that it was allowed to be easy and that rest was counterproductive. And that was very much, in the 2010s, that's when I started my first business. A side hustle wasn't really a thing then, but I was doing that. My friends thought I was crazy. I was working all day for somebody else, and then on the nights and weekends, I was working on my own business. And that's something that's way more normalized now, but like side hustle was not a word then.
Mhm.
Um, and I found myself in this loop, in this pattern of working really hard for the companies that I worked for and honoring that time that I was giving them. And then my free time, I was spending working even harder for my own businesses too. And that was just this cycle of working. And I thought that's what you did. I thought that's what you did to be successful. That's what I learned growing up that success took hard work. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm working so hard. Being successful. This must be it. I must be doing the right thing. And so yes, it was the rest, but I think the biggest thing was the programming and the belief system that I had running the show, both in my conscious and in my subconscious mind, of that worthiness and some of those other parts of me that held beliefs like rest wasn't productive and that for me to be successful it had to be really hard, it couldn't be easy. And those definitely showed up in every area of my life.
So when you started this, I guess, new life, or however you want to put it, what were some beliefs or programmings that you had to let go?
Mm, almost all of them. A lot of unlearning, a lot of letting go, a lot of true surrender. I've really stepped into a season in my life now where I see how productive rest is, but it took me hitting that breaking point. It took me hitting that point where I remember I had surgery, I was recovering. I loved the rest. For the first time I was like, wow, this is so nice. I don't actually want to go back to work the way I was working. Um it's so nice to take a break. And after surgery and that recovery, I'm so grateful. I had a great recovery process, and I was feeling really, really good in my body. And I had this aha. I was like, oh, wait. it doesn't, it can, I actually get to rest. And I was working with a mentor at the time who was helping me really ease into rest, and my therapist was helping as well. Um, but it was an ongoing process of really showing myself and updating myself on, maybe another way of doing things. It didn't have to be the way I was doing it the way before. And noticing how good it felt to have rest in my life. And then it was with that space that I really started to have more have more observation and awareness of maybe a lot of the choices I was making in my life that were maybe based in an old part of me that was operating from survival mode, instead of really being in my authentic energy and doing things that felt good from either my full body, a full body, yes, I use that language a lot, or being something that felt good and expansive and a yes, versus making a decision out of like a lower vibration, a lower frequency, like fear or shame or guilt. And really starting to develop that relationship with my body, to know what that yes felt like in my body, to know what that no felt like in my body, so that I could trust myself to make my own decisions and not just continue to operate from the old programming that I had been living in.
No, it's very interesting because I mean, you want your mind and body to be connected when you make a decision, but for the rewiring of the brain to, I mean, did you ever feel when you stop that behavior and are entering a new phase where, I mean, you're still a hard worker. I'm not going to remove that. I see
Yeah.
you're hustling. I see
Yeah.
your bio and the work that you're doing. But as you finally give your body that break, and it sounds like your body was speaking to you saying, about time,
Yeah.
finally.
Yeah.
But with the mind, was
Mm.
there ever like a guilt or a pressure, like, no, don't rest, you got to get back to work? And if so, what were some things that you did which helped
Yeah.
you to
Yeah.
rewire that, I guess, that pressure from the mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one thing that it maybe is a misconception about healing, quote unquote. I was in a breathwork experience recently, and our facilitator said, it's not heal ED, it's healing. It's a constant process. And um, yes, I have a better relationship with work and rest now and what that means for me. But that part that wants me to be successful, achieve, go, 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 always be on. That part of me she's still there. She served me so well for so much of my life. Helped me achieve so much, helped me grow a business with clients all over the country and team all over the country. And that part really served me for decades. And so it's not getting rid of that part. I tell clients this
Mm.
often. It for me, and the approach that I take and what I think is really healing is acceptance of all of our parts. So it's not shunning that part away and never letting that part be there ever again. It's saying, hey, that part of me that's always on the go. Thank you. Thank you for helping me. And giving that acknowledgement, and then having the courage, because it really does take courage to try. And I always think of the analogy of flexing a muscle. It's like we're lifting a dumbbell at the gym. We don't start on 100-pound weight. We start with, 2 pounds, 5 pounds, whatever it might be, to help flex that muscle. And so, what are different ways that we can try to exercise that? Maybe we're, and maybe we'll be invited to an event and we don't really want to go, but we feel like we should go. Maybe that's a great time to exercise. Eh, no, I'm not gonna be able to make it. Thank you though. And just seeing how that feels in the body. And I think oftentimes we can feel a guilt or a pressure to let somebody down. Um, but really, if we're doing something out of the feeling or the fear of letting somebody else down, what we're really doing is letting ourselves down. And so that's easy for me to say. It's harder to do in action, but it's still a part of us. Those feelings that come up And the feelings are just information. So allowing that acknowledgement of it in the moment, getting curious about, oh, why, why am I feeling guilt about saying no to that? Um, and instead of being like, oh, I'm never going to think about that part or that feeling ever again, hey, thanks. This is an internal dialogue or something that you can do with a therapist or a coach or somebody who does parts work. But getting to a point where you can witness the part and be with the part, you don't have to try to shun it away. That allows us to accept and integrate and really operate from a complete place instead of trying to make that part go away.
Mm. So I love it. And something that I see from your bio or from one of your websites is, and I want to hit on this real quick, is it says rooted in sound and music. Can you tell us a bit about what that is?
Yeah, since I was a little girl, I have loved to sing. I actually, on my mom's side of the family, I come from a family of singers. It's in my DNA, and I've sang since I was little. Um, and in high school and college, I even went to college for singing for a while. I ended up not graduating with a music degree for a variety of reasons. Um, but using my voice and singing and sound has always been such a big part of my journey. I played instruments growing up, I was singing, involved in musical theater. And, when I transitioned into college, I wanted to triple major, being ambitious, being on the go. I wanted to do musical theater, business, and journalism. And the School of Music wouldn't allow me to triple major. That was too demanding, um, I was told. And so I stopped doing musical theater and focused on business and journalism, and then translate that into having a marketing agency where I got to use storytelling and my creativity and data analytics in a lot of different ways. But I've always loved music, and I've loved dancing around and really just being in that kind of creative energy. And but part of that journey, I stopped using my voice. I stopped singing after I decided not to triple major anymore. And you know, I in 2021, I was in the audience at a women in business event in Arizona where I lived at the time, and there were hundreds of people in this room. And there was a woman that was on stage and she was doing a sound bath. And I didn't know, at the time, I didn't know what that was. But I sat there and I had been doing meditation for a couple of years and sat there, and we were, invited to close off our eyes if that felt good and listen to these sound bowls. And I had no idea what was going to happen, but my intuition in the moment told me that the woman on stage was going to be a big part of my life and that I needed to work with her. And I was like, I don't even know what this means, but okay. I closed off my eyes and I had the most profound meditation experience that I ever had with the sound bowls, with frequencies. And she had a variety of instruments and they were playing, and I was seeing colors and I was seeing different visions, not in my eyes, they were closed, but in my third eye, our spiritual eye. And I came out of that experience knowing that was something significant for me, and I needed to know who this person on the stage was. And fast forward, she's become not only a great friend, but she was a spiritual mentor to me. She was a guide to me. Um, we ended up working together one on one, but she's a sound healer, and I have since used sound for my clients. I got certified in playing the sound bowls, and it's so beautiful to me because with that belief and that answer I gave earlier about everything being energy, our bodies are mostly water. And if we think about, like, if you throwing the visual of throwing a pebble into a pool or into a little pond, you get the ripple effect. And for me, the way I understand it, the sound bowls operate on frequencies and energies, there's a belief that they're connected to the chakra system, which is an energetic system throughout our body and their energy meridians. And the sound frequency can help shift things in our energy body, in our energy field, that are related to those different energy meridians. And so it's really cool that to go from that little girl that was a singer, always singing around and dancing, doing, making up. I even made up songs and fake languages. I mean, I just theater over and above, but using my voice, using sound. And now I use sound with clients in new ways where I play the bowls. Sometimes I will use my voice if I need to move energy in that way. I read energy, I interpret it. I also get intuitive information and do intuitive readings for people, so I know things that they need on a more like supernatural or undescribable to the human eye level. And it's cool that I get to use sound in that way with clients now too.
So, what kind of person, or let me rephrase that. How does a person know if they should work with you as a client? Is it only for people with PTSD or people who are maybe struggling with depression, or is it broader than that?
I believe we all can benefit from not only somatic work. Soma, the root of that is a word that means body. And sound, there's frequency all around us at all times. All of our all the music we listen to, it's all tuned to certain frequencies and hertz. Energy, the planet, Earth even has its own frequency, which is a really healing frequency for the body. That's why that's really at the root of some of the science for grounding. If you walk barefoot on the earth, or earthing, it's also called. There have been studies on Earth's electromagnetic field and its impact on the body and inflammation, or pupil dilation, real things in the body that can be shifted by frequency. And so I would say if you have a human body, or even if you have an animal, I did, my soul dog, he passed away in 2023, but before he passed, I did sound baths for him and he loved them. And our animals, even when I do sound baths outside, sometimes if there's animals around, they'll come be close. They want to be
Mhm.
by the sounds. They know that they know that there's some magic there. And so yes, it can be helpful for cases like you mentioned, depression, anxiety, PTSD, other forms of trauma and lived experience, or even anybody who's living maybe from a place where they're saying yes when they mean no.
Mm.
Um, Going to that dinner, taking on that client, taking a job that they really aren't that excited about, but I mean, hey, we got to pay our bills. But I think anytime we have that self-betrayal, I believe that causes friction in our system and it causes energy to stick. And the cool thing is they're starting to study fascia. And there's some science that is covering things that feel really true in my body and in my existence about how energy gets stuck and then it causes different pains, different ailments. And so I believe we all can benefit from this kind of work. But most of us don't maybe know we need it. I didn't. I surely didn't. I had my intuition told me, hey, you need to check this out. But I was like, what? I'm building a marketing agency. A story I told myself decades ago was I wasn't good at yoga and I didn't want to meditate. I didn't want to slow down enough to do it. Now I teach yoga and I meditate every day in some form. And so I think, we can get really stuck in the story. And I think especially we live in a world that rewards us for being in the head and really caught up in a lot of information at once, which keeps us in our head instead of being in our body and felt experience. So that's why I believe it can help everyone, regardless if you're an entrepreneur, regardless if you have a condition. Even the FDA approved sound therapy for cancer tumor treatment cells. recently, and there's video of using sound frequency to shrink tumor sizes. So the science is starting to catch up with what some of the ancient healers have known for generations, decades. So yeah.
So if someone wants to work with you, what can they do? Where can they go?
Yeah. Well, I'm I have a website and there's a lot of information about me. I know you mentioned it. I also have an online platform. It's called Stand Store, and that's really where all of my current offers are. It's just a platform that allows me to have all parts of me there. So, not only this journey with somatics and energy reading, but also I have a course all about Pinterest marketing, and really just accepting all parts of me and a little bit of AI for small businesses and all of these things that I have encountered on my journey over the years. Because again, operating from wholeness, embracing all of me, that's something that's been really alive for me on my journey in the last year. Because for some context, when I closed my marketing agency, I kind of wanted to close the door on that whole chapter and thought that that was the right thing to do, because I wanted rest and wanted to take a pause. And so I didn't talk about marketing. I didn't I had a couple of consulting clients, but I didn't really talk about it publicly at all. And um, and then I recognized really clearly that, this wholeness that I was seeking in my life, I wasn't embracing in my career and in my professional journey. And it feels really good to be all of me and share all of my wisdom and all of my gifts. And so that's a platform where you can find out about all of my different offers. The thing I'm really excited about, because, one-on-one work is incredible and it is amazing, but it's an investment. It's a time commitment. There's monetary exchange for the energy that's exchanged between us, and really the support and guidance. I don't like to be thought of as necessarily a coach, but a guide or a mentor who's along the journey with my clients. But that might not be a first moment commitment that everybody's ready to take. Unless your intuition is telling you you need to know this girl, then I know to listen to that for myself now. But I think often if somebody's operating in a state where they're really stressed out or um, not feeling fully in their body, in their lived experience, committing to jumping into a commitment and a program like that could be too much for the system. It actually could be overwhelming. So I actually just launched my monthly community, the Energy Edit, where it's a more accessible opportunity to come together, get some wisdom, maybe get some sound healing, some movement, some different teachings, different information, to get a little taste of what it is to connect. And so that's something I'm excited about because it helps bring this work to more people and give a little like preview of some of the ways, and just almost to see, how do I feel coming into the call today? How do I feel after it? And then if that feels good, great, come back. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Maybe there's something else that'd be more helpful for you on the journey. So that's something that I'm really excited to be offering right now, is a way to connect with people. Yeah.
Awesome. So, for those in the audience, I'll be leaving those links in the show notes. So, if you didn't catch it earlier, just go to the show notes and you can find it there. And Stephanie, now to kind of come to the conclusion of our podcast, I have a question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, Stephanie, what is your truth that heals?
One of the biggest lessons I've learned, and the thing that I see so often in the world is, and it's even bringing some emotion because it really, this is from my heart. I think we live in a world that has a couple different blueprints of what success looks like and what we should do. Oh, and that should word, we have to stop shoulding ourselves. Um, the the beauty, I think the biggest healing that we can all access is giving ourselves permission to follow the things that light us up, to be in our authentic energy and to share what we like, to be the change we want to see. That's one of the quotes that I live by. And I think often we live in a world where we think we might have to copy somebody else's blueprint for success, or, oh, they're follow the social media. What are they doing? Let's look to that model and do their version of success. But I think the biggest healing thing we can do is give ourselves permission to follow what lights us up, each individually, and to share our unique gifts. If you're really passionate about comic books, following that, exploring that, starting a YouTube channel for that, or a TikTok or whatever it is, sharing with a friend. And I think when we can operate from that, that would be my wish, is that we could all operate from a place that really excites us in the things that we do and what we share out in the world, because I believe that allows us to operate from our authenticity, which is how true healing happens.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie Riel, for sharing your truth. And for those in the audience, please don't forget to like, subscribe. Please feel free to comment. That really helps out the algorithm to get my little podcast and YouTube channel out there just a little bit more. That'll help so much. And please share this episode so that more people can encounter and discover the truth presented by our guest today, Stephanie Riel. And Stephanie, thanks so much for being a guest on the Truth That Heals podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so great.